Hello friends, welcome to another video on my YouTube channel Code and Canvas. And in this video, we are going to cover scoped instructions in GitHub Copilot. So if you have seen my last video, in that video I have explained how the instructions are passed to the GitHub Copilot in copilot-instructions.md, and all the instructions that you have written in that file, they are passed with every prompt to the LLM. I have also explained a constraint in them that if you make your Copilot instructions MD too big, it will be passed in every prompt to LLM, and as the file is big and all the instructions are or might not be relevant to the prompt that you are passing, it will be a wastage of token, as well as if file becomes too large that it becomes out of the context window of a small LLM, then it may also ignore some rules that are written at the start of the file and it may hallucinate. So it's better to keep that file short and crisp and clear, and only write the general standards, coding standards, or the rules that you follow in your team. So let's say if you are working on a project that has multiple components in it. For example, you have React components in it, you have API as a backend. For example, in Next.js, you can write your React components as well as the API in the backend, right? So maybe in backend you are writing TypeScript files, in the UI you are writing JSX files for React, and maybe you are working on a database, you have some security standards, you follow some rules for testing and all that. So if you write all of them in the copilot instructions.md, and let's say if you ask Copilot to build a React component for you, in that case the whole instruction file along with the security, testing, backend APIs and everything, they will all go to the LLM as a system prompt, and they will be just sitting there in the LLM and wasting your tokens. Because while building a React component, you don't need instructions on how to build an API or how to write test cases or how to work with the backend TypeScript or database. So all these instructions are not needed when you are working on a React component, right? So you want something that Copilot can pick up on need-to-need basis. For example, if a Copilot is working on a React component, it should just look into the instructions that belongs to the React component. Similarly, if it is writing test cases, then it should look into the instructions that are belonging to the writing tests. And if it is working on a database, it should look into the instructions related to that. In every prompt, it should not look into the whole set of instructions, because it will be a waste of time processing and as well as your tokens and cost. So in this demo, we are going to see how exactly we do that. So I'll just show you the setup. Here I have created a demo directory in which I have created an API called users. So if you will go through this file, I have created APIs for getting a user, for getting a particular user, then patching a user, updating a user or deleting a user. So I'm not using any database or something like that. I've just created a map of users at the top like this, and I'm just doing updations in this map only. So the string is just in random ID, and user is the user object which has this ID, name, email and created it, etc. So a small API, there is no database, there are no services or things like that. It's just a small file that contains small APIs. Then I have a component directory in which I have a small component which is called button.tsx. Just a button. These two files are independent, nothing related to it. I have just created them for the demo purpose, so that I have multiple types of files or components in my demo project. Then, as I have told you in the last video, that you put our GitHub directory at the top, like at the root project, at the root level. So I have already moved my GitHub directory this time to the root level in this top under the 03 scope instructions directory, and in this you see copilot instructions.md is present. So in this, if you will see, I have just written very small documentation about it. So because the React JSX is also based on TypeScript, I have enabled TypeScript for this React, as well as my API is in TypeScript. I have written the instructions or the coding standards about TypeScript. So because these are applicable to all the files in my file. So if in any file, if my if Copilot is editing any file in my project, these are applicable to it. Similarly, build and run commands are needed for all types of prompts that I will pass to my Copilot. Like they are usually needed by all the prompts, right? If you are working on a coding standard, how will Copilot install a project? It will build a project. It will see the errors, how to test, how to run the test. All these things are common instructions or common knowledge that a Copilot should be aware of. Similarly, I have just mentioned my tech stack version like Node.js 18+. I'm using Node.js 18+, TypeScript version this, React this, and Express.js. So this is just the general knowledge about my project, the basic architecture of my project, and it just contains the instruction on the general coding guidelines that will be followed on my entire project. Now I have React components and I have API. I am creating APIs as well in my project, right? So both of them follow a different instructions. Both of them has different coding guidelines that I want Copilot to follow. In that case, I'll just create you can just create an instructions directory inside the GitHub directory, and you can put your scoped instructions under that. So the naming convention for such kind of a file is you just define the name according to what you are putting in that file. For example, I have named my first file as API routes.instructions.md. So API routes instructions.md, it contains the guidelines that a Copilot should follow while building a new API. So in this I have mentioned about status code, the route structure, and request validations, response format, error handling, and middleware order, and everything. Whatever you feel is needed for authentication, route documentation, and everything. Whatever you feel is needed for your API, you can just put inside this API routes instructions.md. Then I have a React component instructions.md, which contains the standards about React components. So it talks about functional components, hooks, props, types, state management, event handlers, and all those things. Although it's too big for such a small project, but you can tweak it according to your own project. Then I have similarly security review instructions.md and testing standards instructions.md. So testing standards contain the instructions about testing, coverage, about the file structure, mocking, and assertions. And security contains the instructions about validations, authorization, data protection, SQL injection, and all that. So if you observe, all these files have .instructions.md as their suffix. So this is the naming convention that you should follow for Copilot to pick up the file as an instruction file. You can name in any way you want. You just have to suffix them by .instructions.md. If you do that, and if you put that inside an instructions directory, Copilot knew that these are scoped instructions and they need to be picked up on need-to-need basis. Now there are three ways a Copilot can pick up your scoped instructions. One of the ways is like this: when you define in your file when these instructions to be picked up. So here you can see this apply to thing, right? So we have two fields here, description and apply to. Description tells the Copilot when and what these instructions are for. So this helps Copilot to select the instructions while working on a prompt or on a task to decide if he wants to pick up the instructions that are loaded in this file or not. If you want to specify Copilot directly that whenever you are working on some kind of file, you should pick up these instructions, you can just specify then apply to. So here I have said whenever the Copilot is working on TSX or JSX file, then it should pick up these instructions, it should follow these instructions. So you can just mention that in apply to. Now whenever a Copilot is working on or editing or writing a TSX or JSX file, it will just load these instructions as a system prompt and it will send to LLM. Similarly, in the API instructions, I have said if it's working on any file that is .ts extension, then it should follow these rules. This is how you can tell Copilot specifically how to pick up or when to pick up instructions as a system prompt. Now, if you don't mention the apply to field in the instructions file, then the Copilot picks up the instruction based on the description you have provided here. So this is like on-demand picking up. This is on-demand picking up the instructions. So if you will see the description here, use when performing security audits, checking for vulnerabilities, reviewing authentication, or validating input handling. So whenever the Copilot will be performing any task like this that is matching this description, it will just load these instructions as a system prompt and it will just send it to the LLM. So Copilot decides based on the description as well as the apply to field that is passed in your instructions file, and obviously description is a mandatory field because it will help Copilot to pick up the instructions. Otherwise it may happen it will never pick up the file that you have stored in the instructions.md. So only creating a file and storing it inside this instructions.md is not sufficient. Your description should be good enough so that Copilot can easily decide when to pick up this file and when to follow them. Similarly, if you will see my testing standards, Here I have used the description, use it when writing test, improving test coverage, or testing edge cases and error scenarios. So whenever Copilot is working on such a use case, it will load this instruction file and it will pass it to the LLM. Now a third way is to directly mentioning in your prompt to follow a instruction guideline. For example, if I open this chat window, let me create a new session here. I'll just close it. So you can just do things like this. You just put a hash and then your instructions file name. For example, let's say I'm working on a test case. I'll just do testing standards instructions.md. What I'll just do it in the ask mode. I don't want it to change anything on my code. What do we follow while writing tests? So let's wait for the reply. So I have passed this file as the instructions.md file specifically in my prompt. Now Copilot will go to this file, it will just read this file and it will give us the answer according to that. So as you can see, if I compare the content in the file and the answer given to us, let's see, naming conventions, the file component test.ts. So you can see it's giving us the exact lines, right? Test file names, component.ts and feature name.test.ts. So it's giving us the exact lines. So it's going to that file. It's talking about the coverage. I think it's 80% coverage and happy paths and error cases. So all these things it's getting from this file and it's returning us the answer. Now let's try an on-demand prompt. I'll not pass the file name this time. Let's try the React component one. So I'll just go to this file, go to this component. Let me go to button.tsx component and let me just pass it in the Copilot. And what coding guidelines I should follow while working on this file. Okay, now the Copilot knows that I'm talking about a React component. So let's go to our React component instructions.md. Here if you will see, let's compare. So it's talking about component structure, then it's talking about functional components only. It should be mentioned somewhere. Yeah, functional components only, no class components. And there are hook rules, use hooks at top level. I think I've mentioned that, call hooks at the top level. And one component per file, named exports preferred over default. So here are props and types. All props must be typed using TypeScript interfaces. Use interface for prop types. So as you can see, it's exactly same. The lines are exactly same as I have written in my instructions.md, right? Now, if you will also observe that I have not passed any instruction file explicitly in it, right? So when I'm asking about Copilot to give me instructions or coding guidelines that I should follow while working on a React component, it's picking up my React components.instructions. As you can see, anything that is written in testing standards, security review or API routes, it's not coming up. So if I scroll down, it's just about React, right? Universal. So it's please note it's also including universal TypeScript style. It's coming from the Copilot instructions.md. So as I said, this file is picked up every time you pass a prompt to the LLM. So it's first picking up this file, then it's checking all these the description and apply to field and all these, and whatever suits it, it just picks up that. So as you can see, this answer, this reply is the combination of the instructions that are present in Copilot instructions.md. TypeScript is coming from here and React component instructions are coming from here. Let's try one more example. Let me go to user routes.ts. Let me pass this file as well. Let's ask the same question again. What coding standards I should follow while working on this file? So now as you can see, there are no instructions about React. It's about middleware, async await, query params, TypeScript standards coming from the global one, error handling, request validations. All these are present in my API routes instructions.md. If you go here, if you will see, I have talked about the same HTTP methods, status codes, and let's go down, request validation, request format. All these are coming from this instruction file. So these are because I have mentioned here specifically when Copilot is or LLM is working on any file which is has extension of .ts, it should follow these rules. That's why it's going to pick it up. Now, if you don't specify this, like I have put my in my security review, I have not specified any apply to because it doesn't because these rules doesn't follow a file type, right? It can be they can be generic and they can be only they are only applied when you are looking for security measures, right? So let's try these. Let me just go to a random file. Let's go to button.txt again. Now I'll just ask a random prompt. I'll just do not pass it. I'll just ask a random prompt. What security standards I should follow in this project? Okay, now I'm talking about security standards. As you can see, if I can expand this, yep, it read security review instructions.md, as you can see in this as well. So let's go to the top, and if I just can find this, okay, here it's not showing the file name, but as you can see, it picked up the security standards instructions.md, right? So this time, as I have not applied, I have not passed that apply to field inside these security review instructions, right? It automatically found out that I am talking about security, and it checked the description present here, which is saying when you are performing security audits, checking for vulnerabilities and all that, it's matching that, and after that it's picking up this file and reading the instructions from it. So that is what also I'm getting here: dependency security, cross-site scripting and everything. So as you can see, I mentioned here data protection. Let's go to the top: data protection, then SQL injection prevention, then error handling, then API security, then dependency security. As you can see, the whole file is there, right? So yeah, so this is how scoped instructions work with the Copilot. We have seen that how it works in the ask mode. Let's try a agent mode. Now I will switch my mode to agent mode, and let's pass a prompt to do something on React components. So let me go to my this file and let me look for the prompt. Yeah, let's try the React code first. So I'll just pass this prompt. Add a React component called user profile that displays user information. So I'm not passing button.tsx. I'm just creating a new React component. Let's see where it creates. I have not specified the location. Let's see how the answer looks like. Now I have passed a prompt to create a new React component called user profile that displays user information. So as you are aware of that, I have a button component and completely unrelated to any of the code. Now I have user data. I just want to create a React component that displays the information present in my map. I hope it takes context from user routes.ts how the user data will look like, but let's see. So it has created a tsx component. I think it's done. Yeah, I think it's done. So let's open this file and just go here. So as you can see, it's created an interface, user profile props, user profile, returns, and everything. So we have type classes. It has created a huge file, right? So it has defined the params as well: ID, name, email, created at, on, added, delete, and everything, right? So if I go to my React components file, so it's mentioned here, right? The example is mentioned here that you have interface, you have imports on the top, and then you have the component and functional components only, hooks only, props and types. Everything is mentioned here, right? So as you can see, it's following the same structure in this new component as well. If I go back to it again, the imports are on the top, then we have interface, then we have these explanations, then interface, then a React component, and I'm not sure if it is using a hook or not. I don't think it is using a hook at the moment, but it has all everything in place, like the types and everything. Everything looks great, right? So as you can see, it followed exactly what we should follow in the React component, what we have mentioned in the React component instructions.md. Let's try it for an API. Let's create a new API. So I'll just go to this file and I'll create a post API for a new user. Let's see how it behaves now. Yeah, you edited the user routes.ts. As you can see, it is done and it has edited the user routes.ts. And if I just shrink it back and let's move it to the left, and as you can see, it has created a new route, post route, to create a new user. So if you will see, it has followed the same guidelines as we have done with the previous that are already present, previous APIs that are already present. So for any API, we have this doc string present at the top, Then we have the implementation of that endpoint. Same it is following here. It has added the doc string at the top, and it is following the creating the endpoint to create a new user inside our map. So let's see if it is using our map only. My map is present here, and if I see, yeah, it's setting the new user in the map only, right? So it's following the same thing that we have done for all other APIs. And obviously it has taken the instructions whenever it's working on this file. It has taken the instructions from the API routes instructions.md. So as you can see, the example is saying something similar, right? You have a doc string at the top, then you have the implementation, HTTP method, status code. It's giving about the user validation and everything. So let's see if doing something about validation or not. Validated body, I think it's doing some validation. Create user schema. It's parsing in the schema, then it's validating the body based on that, and then it's extracting the name and email out of it and setting up a new user. Now let's talk about some FAQs. So if I go here, we have some FAQs. So you can use all three modes altogether. For example, I show you three modes, right? How Copilot picks up the instructions file, scoped instructions file on demand, or you can just specifically ask here to Copilot pick it up on based on some condition, or you can just pass it manually in the chat in your prompt. So basically, generally people uses the first two. They either mention this apply to field here, which tells the Copilot when to exactly pick it up, or on demand picking up the file, like based on the description. So basically, just people uses these two, like either they specify the file types, or they just provide a really good description that will help Copilot to pick up the file whenever it needs. The third part, where we ask Copilot manually, like follow this instruction for this prompt, it's rare. Like people generally don't use that, because most of the time Copilot picks up the correct file if your description is good enough to decide so that Copilot can decide when to pick it up. Copilot generally picks it up. So the third one, which is like manually including the instructions file in your prompt, is rare. Also, you can mix the auto attach and on demand file on the same file. So which is like keeping both description and apply to in the same file. So either you can keep apply to or description, or you can keep both. There is no restriction on that. Then if your multiple files match, for example, you have the instruction file for testing, you have instruction file for React, and you are working on a React component. You are asking Copilot to create a React component and also write test cases for it. In that case, because that task is a single task for the Copilot, creating the component as well as writing the test for it, multiple files may match, right? For creating React, it will go to this file, and for writing test cases, it will go to this file. So in case multiple files match for a Copilot for a particular task, it picks up both of them. It will load both the files, it will send both of them as a system prompt to the LLM, and it will just follow both. Then how many scope instructions we should have in a file? So generally people start with whatever they feel is most common or mostly used in their project. Like they will create 1 or 2 instructions files. Then if needed, they will create more. So generally you may have 3 to 5 instructions in your project. If you are creating more, like 10 to 12 or more than that, then just review it once again. Like if you're creating too many, like it can become maybe 2 or 3 can be combined into one. So just have a review on that. Like keep reviewing, keep updating them based on the changes in your project or new technologies that are coming up, and it will make your life really easy. You don't have to pass all these things again and again to the Copilot, like basic things, following some principle, following some guidelines. You can just add those instructions either at the global level, which is copilot-instructions.md, or at the scope level, which will be picked up whenever Copilot feels is necessary. And just forget about it. You don't have to pass everything in your prompt again and again. So that's it for this video, and in the next video we will start looking into skills, hooks, and agents. Like I'll cover all of them in separate videos. I'll be creating videos on that in the future. And for now, please like, share, and subscribe, and have a nice day. Thank you.